Hey guys, my name is RyanCentral and welcome to the channel where we're going to talk about the road to champions. Masters 2 has just finished. We saw Sentinels take the title in Reykjavik, the best team in the world, really uncontested after not dropping a map. And so we're going to talk about that, but mostly and specifically focusing on the points. It is the road to champions after all. We need to talk about who got what points, who's pretty much confirmed to be attending the world level event of champions at the end of the year. And yeah, looking a bit at Masters 3, Stage 3, the slot allocation for each of the regions, and talking just a little bit about the performances of some of the teams as we go along. First of all, I was on the analyst desk for day 6, that was super hype, and thank you very much for all of the support and love for doing that. I was filling in for Veli, who had to catch a flight. It was very last minute, but it was super cool to know that I could do that. So yeah, fingers crossed for Berlin. I'll be on the desk or casting for that one, but not really up to me, I've just got to do my best. And yeah, overall, thank you very much for all of the support with the watch parties. It was a challenge. I've never really streamed like a week like that when it comes to 6 hours plus a day, but it was still a lot of fun. It was a shame to miss the finals because of my COVID vaccine kind of kicking my butt a little bit. But yeah, overall, it was a lot of fun and I definitely love to do it again. And I'm going to try and do it again for the North American watch party games. So be sure to tune in for twitch.tv/RyanCentral from now on. That's the flack out of the way. Let's talk about Sentinels. They didn't drop a map at all in this tournament, and there's a lot of confusion when it comes to the points and how that's allocated. And is there any point in Sentinels playing Stage 3, knowing that after winning Masters 2, they are 100% confirmed to be attending the Champions event at the end of the year? Basically, for those who don't know, haven't watched the video, the top 2 in North America, the ones in gold, would automatically qualify for the Champions event, and that's based on who has the most circuit points at the end of Stage 3. Everybody in red would be invited to a last chance qualifier, which would feature 8 teams from North America and also 2 teams from the Oceanic region, which hasn't really kicked off yet, but we'll touch on that a little bit when stuff starts to happen. You're seeing the whole points allocation on screen. No OCE teams as of yet, but we have a good look on who's good on points so far, and Sentinels is certainly up there. There is no way for Sentinels to go out with this top 2, basically. Even if we did this, say NV comes second place in Masters 3, and version 1 come third place, you could see the version 1 would overtake Sentinels at that point if Sentinels don't qualify at all and 0 points, but there's no way for NV to catch them up. Now this is probably the most asked question at this point. Sentinels have 100% booked their place. What's the point in them even trying in Masters 3? What even happens if they win? And it's a pretty good question because it's a really unique circumstance, I suppose, overall. But this is what would happen. So the reason why I didn't say first place in Masters Berlin when it comes to points is because points wouldn't matter. Whoever wins Masters Berlin automatically qualifies for that world event at the end of the year. A great thing overall to just make sure that teams like, say, G2 that have 0 points but could still be hot contenders to win a big tournament like that, especially if they're putting together a bit of a super team, which we might talk about again in the future. There's still a chance for them to play, even if they're super behind on points. It also makes sure that you have the best teams going into Champions, making sure that there's a little bit of a recency bias, to be honest, because the teams that are good in October will just be better than the teams that won out in February or March. So yeah, there's a pretty good chance of a lot of teams coming in and doing well, but the biggest question is, what if that team is Sentinels? What if Sentinels win Masters 3 automatically qualify? What happens then? And this is what happens. So let's say the Sentinels is that team that qualifies. We'll say that's in green. The points basically move down. So Sentinels get that automatic placing for winning Masters 3. And it would be another 2 teams from North America that would get that instant qualifying spot. So the best chance here is that Sentinels win Masters Berlin to basically get another slot in for North America. Instead of 3 overall, which would be the 2 top qualifying teams, which would have been Sentinels in version 1, it would just be those 2, and the winner of the last chance qualifiers, which are all of the teams in red. So it would be just 3 teams normally. If Sentinels end up winning Masters 3, it would be Sentinels for instantly qualifying by winning Masters Berlin, the 2 teams below them, which would be version 1 and NV looking on screen, and then the winners of the last chance qualifier. So Sentinels can really help out their region by winning Masters Berlin. Whether they'd want to or not, I don't know. It seems that they're really proud of North America, and they should be because there's a lot of good teams there. So they might actually do teams like FaZe and Envy a favor by winning Masters Berlin overall. But yeah, going back to it, this is what the points out on the board. Sentinels, there's no way for them not to attend this Champions event at the end of the year, but it can still do a lot of damage by winning Masters Berlin and basically booking a spot for another North American team to reach that Worlds event. And looking at points, you got to feel bad for like Envy, FaZe, 100 Thieves, those teams that didn't qualify. FaZe definitely dropped the ball by not even making the NA Challengers finals, by not getting any other points at that area, I suppose it would be. But yeah, it's going to be a tough one. Cloud9 could impress. They're impressing at the moment, but it's going to be a hell of a beefy last chance qualifier run with all of the teams that are highlighted in red, but there's still one chance to get some points on the board. So even Ambox and Immortals that are on 20 and 10 points respectively, they can still maybe leapfrog some of these teams. And certainly with how Luminosity and how roughly they're doing at the moment, there's a strong chance that Ambox or Immortals could take that spot. Moving over to EMEA, this is where it gets super competitive. Nobody has 100% booked their spot in for Champions because Fnatic and Liquid, the two teams that qualified for Reykjavik, didn't qualify at all in Masters 1. They didn't even make those top 8 teams overall. So there's still a chance for teams, as you're seeing, like Gambit, who are on 145 points by winning the CIS Masters 1 tournament and also coming 3rd/4th in the EMEA finals by losing to Fnatic in close fashion. They're still in it. I think there's a chance that if they make it to Berlin and either Liquid, or more likely if Liquid don't make it, Gambit will just leapfrog them. Because there's 175 points on the board for even just getting to Berlin at that point. Which reminds me, a lot of people say, well, we don't know the points yet of Masters Berlin. We do, it's on this website that's in the description, so we know how many points these teams would get for doing relatively well. So yeah, you're seeing this like Gambit, Fubalist, Ascend, BBL, not too far behind. I think Fubalist and Gambit have a big advantage here because they won their own separate regions of Masters 1, Turkey and CIS. So it means that they're pretty stacked up on points. And Ascend are still in it for a chance. I've heard through the Scrimbox rumors that they're doing really well at the moment, even with some roster changes. So I would like to see them come back, maybe qualify for Berlin. With the 4 slots available for EMEA instead of 2 for Berlin too, it means that we're going to see more points, we're going to see more teams playing in that tournament. So it could get really competitive here. I think the main point to highlight overall is that we're looking at Guild, FPX, Heretics, Forza, they're not even in that qualifying spot, which again would consist of 7 teams from EMEA and 1 team from the Middle East North Africa region, which I'm not sure if it's its own event the teams play into, kind of like the announcement for South Asia and India, which we'll get onto. I'll have to double check on that overall, but it is going to be these teams highlighted in red, and then 1 from the MENA region. There's a lot of MEAs that we have to spell out. But yeah, so like it's an interesting one. Fnatic have done tremendously well after not getting any points in Masters 1. Leading the line now by placing 2nd in Masters 2 is a big help, and I think that it's going to be very difficult to knock them off, especially considering that they're showing that it's not just a honeymoon phase, that this is a team that has adapted and everybody's improved. And I honestly think that Magnum and Mystic especially, has impressed me a tremendous amount in this tournament. I think Liquid did better than expected. We saw some glimpses of their problems so far, but also the highs that they can hit as a team. But these are the points on the board, and as you can still see, there's a lot to play for in EMEA. Moving on to South America, a region I think disappointed a little bit overall in Masters 2. I think Sharks especially coming, butt last alongside Crazy Raccoon is a little weird. But like I kind of understand it. It happens, and it's a team that maybe didn't look too convincing coming into this. And Team Vikings let a lot of people down. But Team Vikings, I think there's no solid way for like Gamelanders or Furia to knock them out of that qualifying spot. It's mathematically possible, but it would mean that like we need to see a Brazilian team come 2nd and 3rd to take Team Vikings and Sharks out of those top 2, which I don't think is likely to happen. So Vikings are in a really good spot right now. Sharks are only a little bit ahead from Gamelanders, and if the meta drastically changes and Gamelanders gets to a point where they're up to date with it, unlike this stage at least, then yeah, I think the Sharks are in a real position to lose their spot, but I don't think Vikings are. I think Vikings are going to be another team that we see. And like you're seeing in the teams in red, we actually see a full South America last chance qualifier. So the bottom 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 teams of Brazil and the bottom 4 teams of Latin America, those 10 teams will play in a last chance qualifier together. And LATAM, remember that there's a North and South too. I wonder if that'll be played online considering how big South America is. It must be, right? So yeah, that'll be playing sometime in like October, I think it would be. And right now, teams that are looking confirmed to have that spot, probably Gamelanders, Furia, Vorax, perhaps 6cam, which used to be LDM, a team that had a lot of problems, but will continue with their points. Infinity, that came second in LATAM this stage. Laser Clan, that came second. I think they came second in LATAM North this time, and also in Masters 1. So it's still up in the air, but I do imagine that we'll see Team Vikings at least for Crew, 6cam, and that can be competitive. Sharks, Gamelanders, that can be competitive. More points on the board, and we'll talk about how many slots Brazil and Latin America would get in Masters 3 in just a second. Now we finally move on to APAC, which now includes South Asia, which for the countries it includes India, Pakistan, Afghanistan, Sri Lanka, the Maldives, Bangladesh, Nepal, Bhutan, and a wild card, which I'm not quite sure. Well, obviously, that's not a country, if you didn't mishear me, but I'm not quite sure what that specifically means. Overall, basically, these 6 regions will play it out for a slot for the last chance qualifiers. So whoever wins this on little micro VCT with this region won't go to champions per se, but they will play into the last chance qualifier, which would include Japan, Korea, and of course Southeast Asia. We'll start with Southeast Asia overall. One of the biggest controversies, I suppose, is that they get 2 slots to get into champions, which I would agree with when you actually look at the teams in here. And you look at the teams in even Korea and certainly Japan with Absolute Jupiter. I think more so Korea, they deserve 2 slots. You kind of go, maybe those slots should be allocated elsewhere. At least I think so, because X10 definitely deserve that position. Much like Team Vikings, can mathematically be knocked off of that top spot, but not likely considering the performances and expectations of the Southeast Asia region on the main stage, even in Masters Berlin. I do think X10 could have gone a little bit further in this tournament. It was a pretty good showing, and there's a lot that they can take back to Thailand in a situation like this. But I do think there's X10 up in Southeast Asia, and then everybody else at the moment. It's a very dominant team. And seeing somebody like Team SMG or Boom Esports, which I have casted, by the way, and I really like those teams, I 100% don't believe that they deserve a position at champions. So yeah, SEA, very competitive, a lot of teams, but there's all of this mangling going on. And then there's X10 at the top, and you would expect to see them at this Worlds event in December. Korea, Newton actually took over Vision Strikers, and a 3rd place finish actually means that they're pretty good on points. It's only 2 teams that go to a last chance qualifier from Korea. So Vision Strikers down 1, really want to hold their nerve. The fact that F4Q and TNL could come in and slip in and do some work is pretty interesting too. But I think between these top 3 teams of Newton, Vision Strikers, and even Damwon, Damwon's team isn't as good, but it's certainly a prestigious organization that could do quite a lot with roster changes maybe, or just having the infrastructure to help this team out as much as possible. I think that 3-horse race should be really fun to watch in Korea, and maybe we can make some content. I know I was talking to Paperfin about it, and it would be super cool to do some stuff on these teams and what has changed between now and stage 3, maybe. Finally, Japan, Crazy Raccoon came bottom last, and they're not too far ahead of Absolute Jupiter because of it. Crazy Raccoon actually did win Masters 1 as well, so they're pretty okay on points. But Absolute Jupiter coming second in both of the finals for Masters 1 and the Challengers finals for stage 2 means that they could certainly overtake them if they can actually get a spot for Berlin and do a little bit better than Crazy Raccoon. They could take that top spot. But Absolute Jupiter, Crazy Raccoon pretty much booked in, I suppose, for having the last chance qualifier spot, but up against like potentially Vision Strikers or Damwon, that's going to be a really good series overall. So that's the current standings on the points overall. You can sort of see the regions where things are looking pretty clear-cut. Vikings, X10, I would expect to see them at the event in December to show up on the world stage again. But what about Berlin? What's the big difference here? Well, between Reykjavik and Berlin, there were 10 teams at Masters 2. There's going to be 16 at Masters 3 because COVID restrictions should ease a little bit, and therefore we should have more teams playing. So who gets more slots? Well, EMEA goes from having 2 teams to 4. We also see North America go from 2 teams to 3. I'll talk about that in a second because a lot of people are angry about that a little bit. 1 team from Latin America, 2 from Brazil, 2 from Korea, 2 from Southeast Asia, and 2 from Japan. Again, bit of contention from some of the audiences about the slot allocations, but let's talk about the main thing. Why does EMEA get 4 and NA get 3 even though the NA is the best region in the world? Kind of pains me to say that as a European, but it is true. Sentinels are looking really good. The main thing is to do with population. There's 2 billion people that live in EMEA, and there's 500 million, I think, that live in North America from what a Reddit post said, I think, at this point. I'm just taking that as fact. So yeah, that's a big thing. EMEA does include multiple regions. North America is just the US and Canada. So EMEA is the CIS, which is a bunch of countries, including Russia, for Christ's sake. Turkey, you've got the Middle East and African teams that will eventually come into this too. Yeah, it's quite competitive overall, but I still think that 4 slots is fair for EMEA. I would have liked to have seen 4 slots for North America personally. I actually think 1 for LATAM is a bit unfair too, considering I would say the crew performed better than Japan, Southeast Asia, even some of the Brazilian teams overall. But yeah, the points as well, we know these points, we know what to expect with the placements of some of these teams, so we have a good idea on, say, when we start to get into areas of teams not qualifying, what finishes and what points certain teams need to get in order to leapfrog others, get into champions qualifying spots, or just make last chance qualifiers or retain their position. For a lot of these teams. But that's where I'll leave it. Quite a lot has happened and a lot to go over. I'll be sure to do some of these in the future as we come back to the VALORANT Champions Tour, but also there should be some roster moves happening in Europe that I do want to talk about a little bit overall. Thanks for watching. Hopefully this was useful, and if you have any questions, let me know in the comments below. Take care. I'll see you then.